Okay, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Today we're going to talk about locating points and midpoints of line segments, okay? And pretty easy assignment, all right? And the first thing we have to do is figure out a couple words, all right? Midpoint, right? Midpoint is the halfway point between 2 points, right? So I don't know, if we had you don't have to copy this, but if you had a point at 2 and a point at 6, and I asked you where the midpoint is, it would be halfway at 4, right? That would be the midpoint of the line between 2 and 6, right? Now, there are some faster ways to do this. Midpoint is pretty easy because midpoint is halfway between them, and halfway between 2 points or halfway between 2 numbers is just called the average, right? So when you find the midpoint of 2 points, look at what we wrote here. x1, the first coordinate, plus the second coordinate divided by 2. That's just average, right? It's the average of the points. And that's the way I like to think about it. You know, the midpoint is just the average of the points. So, excuse me. So if you want to find the average, let's just do a quick one, right? If I wanted to find the average of, let's say, a point's at -4 and the other point's at 10, and you want to figure out where is the midpoint, all you would do is you would add them together and divide by 2. -4 plus 10 is 6. 6 over 2 is 3. So the midpoint is at 3. But notice all I'm doing. All I'm doing here is I'm taking the average, right? The average of the x's. All right. Now, next part. If I have 2 points, right? Let's say one point's at 1, 1. And the other point's at, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 3, we'll say, right? 5, 3. And I want to find the midpoint of this line, right? Well, the midpoint's somewhere around here, right? So that's probably around where the midpoint is. But there's a very easy way to do it. To find the midpoint for the x values, you just add the x values together and divide by 2, or find their average. And to find the y coordinate, you just add the y coordinates together and divide by 2. Find their average. So it's the average of the x's, right? So the average of the x's, comma, average of the y's. So let's do that. 1 plus 5 over 2 is 3. And you'll notice that it's at 3, comma. 1 plus 3 is 4 over 2 is 2. So it's at 3, 2. The midpoint is at 3, 2. Just find the average of the x's, find the average of the y's. Pretty easy. All right. So that's all we're saying here, right? This is saying average of the x's, and this is just saying average of the y's. And this is a big, long, complicated version of just that's what we're doing, okay? Find the value of the given that point B is the midpoint of CD. So remember, the first thing we always do is we draw it, right? And CD is the midpoint of this, right? Now we know the whole line is 12. So that would mean this is 6 and this is 6 because it's the midpoint, right? So x is not needed here, so that was kind of a typo. But how long is CB? 6. How long is BD? 6. Done. It's that easy. All right? Midpoint's just halfway between them. All right. So same problem again. C and D, and B's in between them, right? So what do I know? I know CB is 4x minus 9, and I know CD is 8x minus 5, and I think that's a typo. I meant that to be BD. Yeah, I did. BD is 8x minus 5, right? Yeah. All right, so this is 8x minus 5, right? So now what do we have to do? Well, since B is the midpoint, that would make these equal to each other, right? CB is equal to BD because it's the midpoint. So that means 4x minus 9 is equal to 8x minus 5, right? Minus 4x, so we get, what do we get? I'm going to come off to the side here. We get 4x, actually no. We get -9 is equal to 4x minus 5. And I can already see a typo here. Change this to plus 9, right? So change it to plus 9, right? So plus, that would be a positive 9. So plus 5, so that's 13. So 13 equals 4x, divide by 4, divide by 4. So x is 13/4, right? And then how long would CD be? Well, CD would be this whole entire length, right? So all I have to do is figure out how long CB is and double it, because CB is equal to BD, and together they make the whole line, right? So CB is 4x minus 9, right? So CB is equal to 4x minus 9, and we know that x is 13/4, right? So 4 times 13/4 minus 9, right? Oh, I changed this to plus, didn't I? I'm sorry, plus 9, right? So plus 9, right? So 13/4 times 4 plus 9. What am I doing? I'm just plugging in the value for x, right? And what do I get? I get 13 plus 9, which is 22. What does that mean? CB is 22, which makes BD 22, because remember, they're equal to each other, right? So 22 plus 22 is 44. So CD is 44. What did I do? I solved the algebra problem, and then I plugged in the number for it to figure out what it was. All right? Okay, along the same lines, we've got to talk about one other word here, bisector. When you hear something as being bisected, that's just another word for being cut in half. So if I ask you to bisect a line segment, all I'm asking you to do is find the midpoint. Okay? Bisect, cut in half. All right. Next problem. All right. What is the measure of PR if Q is the midpoint of PR? Okay. Well, what do I know? Well, since it's a midpoint, I know that PQ is equal to QR, right? And I know that PQ plus QR must equal PR. And I know these are equal. So if PQ, I don't know what PQ is, but I know what QR is, right? It's what? 6 minus 3x, which makes PQ 6 minus 3x. And we know what PR is. It's the whole line, so it's 14x plus 2. So what do I get here? Since QR is equal to PQ, right? So they're both 6 minus 3x. So it's just another baby algebra problem, right? So this is 12 minus 6x equals 14x plus 2. So we get 20x plus 2 equals 12. So we get x equals, what is that? 1 half, right? X is 1 half. So I know x is 1 half if I do the algebra. And then what do I find the measure of PR? Well, PR is 14x plus 2, right? So PR is equal to 14 times a half plus 2. Well, half of 14 is 7. 7 plus 2 is 9. PR is 9. That's it. Pretty easy, right? Just basic algebra, not a hard assignment. Okay. Find the midpoint of the given points, right? All right. Well, if I want to find, remember, to find the midpoint of 2 points, right? You find the average of the x's, comma, average of the y's. So you add the x's together, so you get 0 plus 6 over 2, comma, 0 plus 8 over 2. So what do we get? Well, we get, that's 6 over 2, we get 3 comma 4. That's it. 3, 4. Pretty easy. Let's do it again. We're going to go a little bit faster now. To find the midpoint, you're going to add the x's, so negative 2 plus 3 divided by 2, because you want to find the average. And then you want to do 3 plus 15 divided by 2, right? So we get 1 half, comma, 18 over 2 is 9. So we get 1 half, comma, 9. All right. Given point C is the midpoint of BD, find the coordinates of B. Okay, so this one's a little bit harder. We need to picture this in our mind, right? So let's draw a picture of this one because we got to be really careful here, right? D is at 6, 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2. So that's where D is, right? C is at 11, negative 12. So 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, negative 12 is somewhere down here. We'll say that's C, right? C is the midpoint, okay? That's the key. C is the midpoint. So that means B is down here somewhere, right? B is down there somewhere. All right, so we got to go back to the formula, right? We know that x1 plus x2 divided by 2 is going to be the x-coordinate, right? Is going to be the midpoint of the x's. And we know that y1 plus y2 divided by 2 will be the midpoint of the y's. So what you're going to notice is you're going to end up with an algebra problem here, okay? Pretty easy one, but it is an algebra problem. So what are we going to do? Well, we got to be careful because we know what D is, right? We know D is at 6, 2, but we don't know where B is, right? And we do know that the midpoint, that's what it says, the midpoint is at 11, negative 12, right? Because C is the midpoint, right? So you got to be careful here because you're going to have to do some algebra. And it's pretty simple algebra, right? Be careful because this is x1, this is y1, this is x2, y2, and this is the average, right? This is the average of the x's, and this is the average of the y's. So this one's harder because they don't give you B and D. They give you D and C, and they ask you where B is, okay? A little bit harder. All right, so what are we going to do? Let me dumb this down. Well, if I take the average of the x's, which is 6, plus I don't know where the B value is, so I'm going to call it x, and I divide it by 2, I should get the midpoint, which I do know, which is 11. So all I'm doing is I'm plugging in the x because I don't know where the other coordinate is, but I do know where the midpoint is, right? So what do I do now? Well, I get 6 plus x is equal to 22. So x is equal to minus 6 is 2 and 4, so 16, right? X is 16. I do the same thing with the y's. So I know that 2 for the y plus the other y, I don't know it, so I'm going to call it y, over 2 should equal the midpoint, and I know where the midpoint is. It's at negative 12. So I get 2 plus y is equal to negative 24, so I get y is equal to negative 26, which means the point is at 6, negative 26. Now let's just look at this real quick, right? Where would 16, negative 26. 16, negative 26 is down here somewhere. So when you're done with this, you should look at that point and say, does it look like it's in the right place? Yeah, it does. Okay? All right. All right, next problem. Given K is the midpoint of JL, okay, so I know, right? K is the midpoint of JL. So L is at negative 4, 3. That's where L is, right? K is at negative 2, 10, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's where K is. Right? That's K. Find J if K is the midpoint of that. Okay, so you know J is up here somewhere, right? Somewhere up there is J, and I don't know where it is. Right? So where is J? I don't know. It's at some point x comma y, right? So let's just do what we did before. To find the average of the x's, you do x1 plus x2 divided by 2, right? Will give you the average of the x's. So just plug it in, right? Remember, K is the midpoint. So the average of these two is going to add up, the average of those two is going to equal to this. So we know that negative 4 plus x divided by 2 is going to equal negative 2. So if I solve that, I get x equals 0. Yeah? Let's do it with the y's. Well, I know it's going to be y1 plus y2 divided by 2 will equal the average of the y's, right? The midpoint. So what do I know about the y's? 3 plus y over 2 will equal 10. So 3 plus y will equal 20. So y is 17. So where is that point at? 0, 17. And if I look at this, 0, 17 is up here somewhere, right? Somewhere up there, so that's looking like it's right. All right. Example 8. If there's anything on your homework tonight, these are the hard ones, okay? So be careful with these. Okay. We want to find the distance that's 1/4 of the way from B to D. Okay, so here's B. So watch this. B is at negative 6, right? And D is at negative 2, right? So negative 6 to negative 2. All right, here's what we're going to do. What we're going to do is we're first going to figure out how far between B and D, right? So how far between B and D? Well, it's from negative 6 to negative 2, so the distance is 4, right? The distance is 4 units. We can see that, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 units. Now, We want to go 1/4 of the distance. So all we're going to do is figure out what 1/4 of 4 is. Well, 1/4 of 4 is 1. Now here's the thing we need to be careful with. Am I going 1/4 of the way from B to D or D to B? 1/4 of the way from B to D. So I'm going to go 1 forward from B towards D. So where is 1/4 of the distance between B and D? Right? It's at -5. Right? It's at -5. Now, if I had asked you what's 1/4 of the distance between D to B, then you would be going this direction and it would be at -3. All right. Kind of hard at the beginning, so be careful with these. Let's do this again. All right, first things first. How far between the x's, right? The distance between the x's and the distance between the y's, right? The distance between the x's is from here to here. So how far is that? From -3 to 2 is 5, right? Right? And how far between the y's? Well, it goes from -3 to 3, so that's 6, right? Okay? So 1/3 of the way from n to n. All right, I found the distance between the x's, that's like last night's homework, 5. I found out how far between the y's, 6. Then I'm going to multiply them by 1/3. This one's 2. This one's a little bit harder. I'm going to write down what this is. What is that? It's 1 2/3. Now, be careful here. That is not your answer. The answer is not 1 2/3, comma 2. A lot of you are going to write that on your homework and it's going to be wrong. No. Here's what you do. You're going from n to m, right? You're going from -3, -3 towards 2, 3, right? So what we want to do is we want to, since we're going from n to m, we're going forward on the x and up on the y. So we're going to add, since we're going forward on the x, we're going to add 1 2/5 to the x. And we're going to add 2, since we're going up on the y's, we're going to add 2 to the y's. So what's going to happen? We're going to get -3 plus 1 2/5 is, if you check the math, it's -1 3/5. Right? And -3 plus 2 is -1. And then graph that point and see if that makes sense. Let's see if that point makes sense to us even. Let's see, -1 3/5 is somewhere around here, right? And -1 is here. So it's like right here, yeah? And that makes sense, right? Does that look about 1/3 of the way? Yes, like 1, 2, 3, 1/3 of the way, yeah? Okay, now watch this. What if I wanted to go 1/3 of the distance from m to n? If that was the case, I would start with m, right? M is at 2, 3, right? Now watch this. I want to go towards n, so I'm going to go backwards on the x, and I'm going to go down on the y. So if I want to go backwards on the x, I subtract 1 2/3. And if I want to go backwards on the y, I subtract 2. Right? So 2 minus 1 2/3 is 1/3. And 3 minus 2 is 1. So I get 1/3, comma 1. So that point is at 1/3, comma 1. All right? Just be careful. If I'm going from n to m, then I'm going forward on the x and forward on the y. If I'm going from n to m, then I'm going backwards on the x and backwards on the y. You kind of have to graph it out and look at it, okay? If you need help with this, just get online with me and I'll walk you through it. But that's the idea behind these. All right, well, good luck on this assignment and let me know if you need help.